So we'll start 4 lines from the bottom on page Kuvav. The line begins with the word mo-chin-de-yenikah. So even though this is mochin, as was Maria pointed out, that mochin means that there is a full cognizance of the fundamental truth of the Elokus, of godly reality. Yet still, it's called yenikah. There is an element in this mochin, cognizance of the lower madrega, that this is being fed downwards.
It's called yenikah?
Yenikah, suckling.
Suckling, okay.
Excuse me. And as we explained, a very subtle principle. Suckling, when a baby suckles, it does not drink milk. It suckles from its mother. Although what it actually gets in terms of nourishment is milk, mother's milk, but the method by which she accepts it, it's relating to the baby is through suckling, which means at first he recognizes the mother, and then he recognizes the milk that he gets. Pardon me. So this is in fact mochin, but this mochin recognizes and is capable of descending downwards and relating to that which is below mochin. And then further down that line, Beheim bechinas mochin de katnus. This is the bechina of mochin de katnus, mochin of small category. Katnus means smallness. What is the implication in the katnus, in the word smallness? So the moshel that would give us a little bit of a feel for this we point out all the time that a human being stands up erect on his own 2 legs, which is not a logical way of standing in a physical environment. And what facilitates that stand? It is the mochin. It is the fact that he really stands independently of the ground. He stands on the ground, that's it. But he's not dependent on the ground to balance himself and to stand. He balances himself on his own mochin. Because that's the way I'm supposed to stand, that's the way I stand. That's mochin. Now an infant, or not an infant, a little baby, a child, also is able to stand on 2 and is constantly attempting to stand up. He attempts to stand up and then he kind of falls down. Or better still, a baby even in the crib stands up, holding on to the spokes of the crib. The reason he stands up is because of this human cognizance that he's supposed to stand up. But at the same time, he cannot stand independently completely. He holds on to the spokes, which means he recognizes also, while he's standing, that there is an element of support that he wants. He doesn't want to go independently. This is called mo-chin-de-yenikah katnus. It's mochin, but on a compromise, on a low stage. It doesn't take on total independence. In our world, in our human world, we discussed it one time, some time ago. The principle of a company. A company has a hierarchy of management. There's all kinds of managements and presidents and vice presidents.
Directors.
Directors. Everybody has his place, and everybody has his position of responsibility.
Supervisors.
His position of responsibility. All of these ranks and responsibilities, above all of that stands the chairman of the board. This chairman of the board, okay, before I go there, all of these ranks are essentially supported by each other. There is conference, there is give and take, there is giving support. I agree with you, I don't agree with you.
Meetings.
The one who really takes the bull by the horns and who makes a decision, a risky decision, is only the chairman of the board. He can do that. We discussed at one time the setting of a meeting and so forth. Because of this ability of seeing through to the core and making that decision, this is why he's chairman of the board. He also depends on information. He also sits at meetings and asks questions. But everybody does the same thing. But his questions are not what he bases his decision on. He bases his decision on a deeper and higher perspective. Namely, not what's going to be successful. Where do I want to take my company to? What kind of company do I want? That's a completely different perspective. This is called gadlus. Standing
to remain on this call, press 1.
Standing independent, completely independently. This is something which is present generally speaking, in the human arena. As it starts as a child and then grows up, and then when they become maturity means that he can stand, that he stands on his own 2 feet. He's not dependent. He doesn't look around and say, "Are you in agreement with me?" he has his perspective, what he stands for, and where he wants to go, and that's where he goes. He's not defiant, he is not chauvinistic, because in his perspective everything is included. But there is an akudah. There's that point that he stands on. Like he pointed out all the time. The other point, you can balance a huge sphere. Yeah, it's balanced, but the point, that's what counts. So mochin hashayochin lemidos, mochin that relate to midos, it's mochin, but they reassure themselves, so to speak. It is reassured, right? I keep looking for a better word, but essentially, set on the more solid, it gives it a solidity because of recognition of the midos that devolve from it. How does this translate on the midos level? And if he is able to see how it translates to midos level, that he accepts in the full-fledged. And as long as it is just mochin, and it does not have a midas face to it, he is shaky. This is called mochin-de-yenikah. So in Bria, there is mochin. Now let's go back to identify what mochin is. Where do mochin get their strength? Mochin gets its strength from the cognizance of the divine presence. This is what mochin is about. Mochin, the katnus is, yes, definitely there's a cognizance of divine presence. But it is also verified and supported by worldly experience. That's called mochin-de-yenikah. This is on our level. The Rebbe says there's Atzilus and Bria. Bria, in general, even though in Bria there are also different madrigas of mochin, there's etzah mochin, mochin and midas and so forth. But in general, the mochin of Bria is mochin hashayochin and midas. That relate to midas. And in defining this mochin, it's called mochin-de-yenikah. The mochin are mochin, but they have a certain weakness, a certain smallness to them. They need cognizance and recognition and support. Okay, at the end of the fourth line from the bottom. V'zehu, thus, this is what's meant when we say, She'ba'olam habriya hein dur sichli, that in Olam habriya there is dur means Abba v'yira, sichliyim. Sichliyim means Abba v'yira is a real recognition of the truth. He wants elokus, but there is seichel. It is based on seichel. It's not Abba v'yira because of direct connect to elokus, but there is a seichel justification for it. V'hein hamidos haboyim mehabina v'adas. These are the midos that come, that are created and surface from the bina and the das. Midas that come from bina and das. Bina by not chochmah. Chochmah does not create midas. Chochmah is focused upwards. Does not have a presence of its own. Does not have mitzias. And thus it is, there is no midas. Bina is when it becomes a mitzias, that which is understood in chochmah. It becomes bina and das, and there midas surface are created. So this Abba V'yira of these midas, which are Abba V'yira is a phenomenal state of relating to Elokus in such a full-fledged manner that he actually feels Elokus in his very being. Abba V'yira. But this sense of Elokus in his very being comes to him from Bina V'das. He reasons it out. He justifies it intellectually. And in this intellectual justification, there are these two things. On the one hand, this is intellect. On the other hand, this intellect does not have its own means to stand on. It relates to midas, and it looks to see how is that translated in midas. So he creates midas. So these are midas, but the real midas. It's a real Abba, it's a real cognizance, a real experience of Elokus. But ba mihabina v'hadas. It comes from bina v'hadas. It comes from reasoning it out. So on both sides, on the mochin side and on the midas side, there is a certain compromise, a certain limit, so to speak, in terms of the full-fledged point. Neither the mochin have their own point, and nor the midas. Mochin are called midas, mochin the katnus. Mochin are looking towards the midas and seeing how is that going to translate the midas. Midas, on the other hand, likewise. Look up to the mochin and see, okay, what's the justification for this? This is called the world of Bria. Talking to us? No.
Jesus.
U'ba'atzilus, this is why it's Bria. Atzilus, this is bechinas mochin-de-yenikah. This is what's called mochin-de-yenikah. Mochin of full maturity, of full greatness, which means mochin that stand entirely independently. I see the truth, and this is, and that's sufficient. I don't need to any kind of supporting elements. I don't need a walking stick. So this is Atzilus in Bria. Ve'elam ha'itziro ho'yikah begins Amidus. Then there is Elam ha'itziro, the next world after Bria. There is, the principle is the Midas. In Bria, there is the union of mochin, but this mochin has a yochen Midas. In Itzira, ho'yikah is begins Midas. It's principally based on Midas. Hainu bechinas ruach. And this is what's called ruach. There's neshama, there's nefesh, ruach, and neshama. Yitzir is in for ruach, which is in Midas. Ruach is also chayus, but the chayus is a metzias in the world. There's an experience associated with this chayus, with this midas. The Zohar says, illustrating what is a tzaddik, how is a tzaddik, what is a tzaddik draw to a lakus. He says, Kibrodi ishtal basar abu b'yimi, like a child that is completely dedicated to his father and his mother. And in this dedication, it's also ahava v'yira. But this ahava v'yira is such that it completely negates his own mitzias. He puts his life in jeopardy and at risk for their sake. Moser nafshe alayu, that's what the idea says. So indeed it is ahava v'yira, but this ahava v'yira overwhelms his own mitzias. This is a different kind of midas. So in Bria, this is midas haboy me'abin odas. There is explanation behind the midas. El ma'atzira is ikir is midas. Clearly, midas do not allow for complete negation of their own mitzias. It is bechinas ruach. V'yesh gam kin mochin on the last line. V'yesh gam kin mochin. There in Tzira there is also mochin, which means that which is beyond mitzias of the world. Rak, however, only what is mochin in what is the play the role of mochin in Tzira, masha shayach la'anhogas hamidos. That aspect of mochin that pertains to guiding the midas. Midas shouldn't go overboard. They should not lose, so to speak, what you stand for. Shaykh HaHogas HaMidas. As we're going to see, he's going to elaborate on this. Let's take the meaning of ahava, the meaning of yira, whatever it may be. For example, let's take a very low down example. We're going into this. Somebody tastes tasty food. It's really tasty. If there is no mochin associated with it, he can eat it without limit. To the point, as it says in the Torah, You'll eat it until you throw it up. If you are going to be guided by your draw, by your interest, by your taste, it's going to destroy you. Until it'll go through your nose. Because it itself does not have its own control, its own limit. The midat comes from the application of mochin, of seichel. So in that level, in Yitzira the Ruach, the mochin, but this is mochin hasheshach ha'agos hamidus. Mochin, that which is necessary and that pertains to guiding the midas, giving some kind of sense of the midas. Even though the midas are on their own, they're not created that way by the mochin, so to speak. But nonetheless, the mochin have an influence on it. And it tells him, hold it. If he loses that control, then of course we know him, he falls overboard. As for example, that there is a difference between the small and the big, b'midas tiviyin. Katan means a small child, and godel means a mature person, or even amongst mature people, a small person, a bigger person. There's a difference. Shaharei, since that, behold, gam ha-godel nimshach ha-teva. The godel, the mature person, is also affected and is drawn on a teva, as natural inclination. Avol, but yet still, ein ze klal k'may ha-koton. It's totally not like the way the cotton is drawn to his teva. There is no comparison. It's klal. It's not at all the way the cotton is drawn to his teva. Why? Because he has seichel. And what is the effect of the seichel? Shepoil. That affects. This is important. The seichel is effective. Effect behamidos. He has an effect on the midos. Li yoizan hagos on api ha-seichel. He has an effect on the midos that they should be conducted api ha-seichel, according to the seichel. Now, here is the point that we need to understand, and this is why we're struggling with this. It would be a very simple statement to say that he's under the control of the mochin, but that's not the full picture. The midos are modified themselves. It is not that he realizes, hey, this is dangerous, hold on. And the midos on their own would go unabridged. But he has to control himself, recognizing that this is a danger line. This is not what it means. It means the midos are tempered by seichel to begin with. Internally, they're tempered by the seichel. The midos have presence only because the seichel allows them to have presence. It has to make sense. This is the way it has back then. He has a natural inclination. But the natural inclination is tempered by seichel. The natural inclination exists only to the extent that the seichel ratifies it.
By what criteria does the mochin ratify or mediate the natural inclination? And why does the natural inclination adhere to that?
doesn't adhere. It is modified to begin with.
As if to say they develop together.
The natural inclination develops with an input of seichel. In baseball, there is a term called a wild throw, and then there is also a pitch. And what is the difference? A wild throw is he lets the strength of his hand guide him, and he throws across the field. But its accomplishment is very limited. It's very minimal, because if it doesn't go to the glove where it's supposed to come, it goes into the field, and then he loses the whole thing. A pitch is also a very strong use of full distance, but it is guided. And this guidance goes along with the whole throw. This is the pshat, that the midah is not controlled, but under the influence. What makes him throw? Not because he wants to throw. A wild throw means he throws because he wants to throw. If there is a guide of seichel, it's not what makes him throw. This is the purpose of the throw is what makes him throw. The seichel aspect is what makes him throw. The throw itself is initiated by the seichel. So it is tempered from the beginning to the end. Interesting. Baseball found its place in Asia. Right. Let that be it. I don't see any meaning, but I guess we assume that it's going to be. Okay, have a great day. Shabbos. Who is there?
Eli, we dropped off Shlomo.
Hi, Ali.